Y'all, welcome back to another live stream series for the Flow Collective, y'all. It is your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, host of the Empire Place, Empire Lives podcast. And I'm here with
Destini Marie of Black Men Feel Pain Too.
y'all. So, first of all, we're just going to get into who we are and our why. So, we just told y'all who we are. So, our why. My why started because I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, and fibroids of March 2020, right before the pandemic. What scared me most about that diagnosis was what was supposed to take 1 hour took 4 hours of investigation, of reconstruction, and really trying to do as much cleanup as possible of the endometriosis and what was happening all in my body. I was told that endometriosis had no cure. I thought I was living a healthy life prior to, had no idea any of those things were going on inside of my body. And so I was told diet could help. So I started changing how I was eating, how I was navigating my relationship with food. And it took years, all the way up until 2023. So almost 3 years to then embrace juicing and plant-based living when I saw a reduce pain levels, regular periods, better healthy weight management, and also lots of good energy. And what I realized during that time was I didn't want to see my other endometriosis conquerors, my adenomyosis thrivers, my PCOS posse, and my fibroids fighters continue to feel like a victim in their body and to feel like what they were experiencing was going to be their everyday experience, and that there was no hope for a different day, a different vibe in their body, and just a new way of life to really break out of survival mode into thriving mode like I did. And that became my why and my driving force with creating the Empire Place, Empire Lives podcast, but also helping other women going through the things that I went through, embrace a lifestyle that was a little bit more valuable and beneficial to them to address the problems that they were having in their own unique way. And that's how I got started in my why. What's up with yours, Destiny?
Man, my why also starts with just a sense of discovery. So, after being diagnosed with endometriosis, I did a ton of research. I wanted to learn everything about the disease. I wanted to learn everything that was out there to learn about it. And so, as I was listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, doing the Google research, I wasn't finding too much information. Then I also wasn't finding a community. I wanted to hear from other girls and women talk about the endometriosis. I wanted to see how their endometriosis was affecting them in everyday life. But then also, I wanted to hear from other Black women talk about what they were going through with endometriosis. And I just did not find that community. And so, in a moment of questioning why I ended up with endometriosis, birth Black Men Feel Pain Too, really just to bring community together.
I like it. I appreciate you breaking that down, especially when you think about the research that went behind it. Because some people like me, I didn't want to do a whole bunch of research. I wanted to understand what the experiences were like for other people after knowing there's a name to this, I guess, condition and the condition of my body or the state my body was in. And so I really wanted to see if my symptoms align with other people's symptoms, like if it looked like what other people look like, what they were experiencing, because I had never heard of it before. And so it was just really interesting to not hear about something and you be in the health space, prior to, like, I've taken a women's health class in undergrad in college, but I never heard anybody talk about endometriosis. We've heard of, like period health, irregular periods, what's happening in other countries in regards to women's health, but never heard of polycystic ovary syndrome, never heard of endometriosis, never heard of adenomyosis. And so I just wanted to see what their life looked like, what those symptoms were. What did I normalize and ignore for so long, not knowing that there was something going on the inside of my body. There was a deeper message that my body was trying to communicate to me that I had no idea what was going on. And so I think that's the unique part about what you do, Destiny, because you do the case studies and the research, and you have your blog and you're telling everybody about the different experiences and what's actually happening. You go beyond just like your own personal experience. And I think with your blog, I think my podcast platform, really documenting the journey of strength and what it looks like for so many women that have now turned their pain into purpose, or they just want to empower someone else who had similar experiences of what they were going through, just letting you know what's not normal, how they were surviving on pain pills or birth control, or you're just navigating all the different nuances of trying to figure out, how do I really show up for my body? How do I really love myself and navigate this thing called life without feeling so depressed and overwhelmed and anxious of not knowing how my body is going to react every single day? And I think the blog for you, the Black Women Feel Pain Too blog, right?
Yes.
The blog, and then the Empire Plates, Empire Lives podcast. Y'all go check out episode 63 of the Empire Plates, Empire Lives podcast. You'll learn so much more about Destiny's journey, and just hear us have this empowering conversation and how things got started for her on her platform, and then what my journey looked like. So definitely go check out episode 63. After episode 63, though, we decided to join together to do a virtual event. Destiny, let them know about the event.
Yes, so the Flow Collective is happening on October the 25th from 11 to 12:30 in Eastern Standard Time, and is a space for us to come together to gain resources, to come together in the spirit of community. So it's all in honor of Period Action Day, which was October the 11th, and Period Action Day is all about period poverty. And period poverty sometimes is not always having the lack of menstrual products, but also the menstrual education. So we're coming together just to educate, to provide resources, and then be a community to one another.
Period poverty. I think that's a big thing, because even period poverty not only looks different for different people, but it also looks different geographically around the world. And there's so many different initiatives internationally, and then within our own state or our own country, of how we could really help and be supportive. But I think it definitely takes first being educated about it and being more aware. And so I'm really excited to see what this experience is going to bring, having the Flow Collective event. So y'all definitely check the show notes and make sure you click on the link to get your virtual ticket. But before you get your virtual ticket, there's a little bonus in the show notes too. So if you are here engaging with us and vibing with us and showing up with the live streams and really supporting our platforms, we want to hear from you. Your voice is what we need to hear. But most importantly, we want to also provide you with a discount code to make sure you know how valuable we believe you are to our platforms and to our mission. And so definitely check the show notes for all the good vibes and value. All right, y'all. So now we about to get into it. What no one tells you about healing menstrual pain. Let's just go straight off the top of our head, Destiny. What are some things that nobody told you about your menstrual pain?
Anything and everything, honestly. But what nobody really, kind of what it boils down to is back to the education of knowing the difference between a healthy versus unhealthy period, what's normal versus what's abnormal. So when we're talking about period cramps, debilitating period cramps are not normal. That's something that's unhealthy. That's not something that you just deal with because your period is on, or your doctor just told you that's just how it is when you get period cramps. Bad period cramps are not normal, and that's something to be looked at. So just the simple basis of everything around menstruation, the difference between cramps and bad cramps, and the nausea and the vomiting and the headache and the migraines and the mood swings and the ovarian pain and the leg pain and the back pain, and just everything else that comes with endometriosis, but everybody's just telling you, or you just get told that it's just your period.
I can definitely attest to the low back pain. At first I thought it was just like my kidneys, like something was going on with my kidneys. So I was like, what is going on with my back? Like stretching, it was just like really figuring out like what is happening. Why does my back hurt so much? What did I do? Was I lifting too much at work? Was I moving things around too much? Like, did I mess up the body mechanics? So that low back pain was definitely there. For me, the bowel movement pain during my menstrual cycle, like that was something I normalized because it was something that regularly happened to me every time I was on my cycle. It's painful bowel movements, and I didn't know what was happening. That I also normalized. The mood swings, it was almost as if that was normalized too. And it's like when you hear people going through, they be like, oh, her period must be on, or,
Yeah.
she's getting a little bitty. So, or she's in those moods and she wasn't easily triggered to be in this mood. It must be her time of the month. And so the mood swings were always just like something that's supposed to commonly happen when your cycle is on. But also something that I didn't know that no one told me about is what is a heavy or light period? Like, what is a heavy period? And I remember one of my classmates in the 8th grade, when her cycle would come on, she would typically like kind of bleed out. You know how we were kind of what do you call it, self-conscious when our cycle would be on in middle school, and it's always like, when I get up to go to the bathroom and stand up, check me to make sure I'm okay, check me to make sure I'm okay. And one of these classmates, it was almost as if every time her period would come on, there was always like a little residue in her desk or her seat. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Now, knowing what I know, clearly she was experiencing a very heavy period. And her flow might have been natural to her and, just her norm, but it still was too heavy that maybe she would need to talk to somebody about that, because having heavy flows might make you somewhat anemic because you're losing too much blood, and there might be an issue with that. Some people bleeding for so long, whether they're bleeding for 14 to 21 days. I had a client that bled for 14 to 21 days, had to stack her her pads just for one cycle because the flow was so heavy. So I believe that no one necessarily tells you if you bleed out of your pad or soak or drench a pad after 30 minutes, that's not normal. Like there's no measurement or no gauge that tells us what is a good, healthy flow, what's a decent flow when it comes to that. And I think that's a big one. Another thing, Destini, was like clots, like passing blood clots, like clots. Not everyone be like, oh, well, it's just fresh blood, or like, is that something I should be concerned about? Like, should I see clots happening? Am I passing clots? Is that healthy? Is that good? Is that okay? Or should I be concerned about that? Is that something I should be documenting in my notes to take to a doctor? And then the other thing that you talked about before too is just like pain, whatever pain that is, another one was the nausea. Like, and then people just saying, yes. And then the nausea for so long, like no one told me about that when it came to my menstrual cycle, is the nausea. I'm almost thinking it's food poisoning every single time, not even associating it to my menstrual. So that was another thing no one told me about. And so those are just some of the things based off of what you were saying, just to add on to some of the other things that I experienced that no one really talked about. And I feel like we've had those health discussions in middle school where they put the boys on one side in their locker room and the girls on the other side, and we have this conversation. Then we get into high school and they might talk about birth control and contraceptive in high school, but it was all about just really pregnancy, not necessarily having a healthy period and what that looks like and some things that are normal or not normal. And then I get into college and we don't have that deep conversation when it comes to women's health. Again, not talking a lot about fibroids or polycystic ovarian syndrome or just cysts on your ovaries or what it looks like to have an irregular period. And too many women that I've talked to on the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast talked about their experiences starting either in middle school, high school, but definitely in college, and having a hard time trying to explain that to their professors when they're sick, when they're in deep pelvic pain, they can barely function and get to class, when they have heavy period flows and not really knowing what to do and who to talk to. And so I really believe that there's a lot of gaps being had in the system to where we need to have more education. We need to have more awareness. We need to be able to have these spaces where people can really talk about their experiences because no one really told us. And so we get to talking and get to sharing with other people. I feel like it helps the community start to heal and know what's normal, what's not normal, and how we could be more of a support and a resource just because we have shared spaces and conversations. And so I think that's a big part of what we have so many different platforms now trying to do, moving the conversation.
Yeah. And to even add on two of the things that we were talking about when it comes to mood swings, and then the irregularness of a period. So, and also like when we talk about mood swings, we have to think about things like PMDD, so premenstrual dysphoric disorder, when your mood swings are so low sometimes. And the seriousness of PMDD is because it leads to suicidal thoughts. And
Mm.
so when we get into the conversation of healthy period versus unhealthy period and normal versus or no, on abnormal, we also have to think of, the seriousness of specific conditions like PMDD. And then also with the bleeding too much. So something that I don't have heavy periods, but what I do have is very short menstrual cycles. So I'm getting my period every 22, 23 days. I'm nowhere, I'm not like the 28, 29, 30-day mark, maybe every 3 weeks, every 3.5 weeks, I'm getting my period. And so even with that, that's sometimes losing too much blood because a healthy person gets a period 12 times a year. I might get my period 15, 16 times a year just because of how short my menstrual cycle is. So we also have to check my blood and watch for that because I could be losing too much blood since I'm having a period so often.
I kind of want to ask you a little bit more about PMDD. What are some of the signs that people might be experiencing PMDD and don't even know it and might want to get that checked out? Because is that something that is confused with PMS? Or like what does that really look like for someone who's listening to this conversation? Like nobody really told me a lot about these things, but now there's a PMDD. What is
Yeah.
PMDD and what does that look like in our
So
regular?
I like to describe PMDD basically as PMS on steroids. So
Mm.
when we look at a spectrum, we have PMS, just every regular normal PMS, and then we have PMDD on the opposite end of the spectrum. So people with PMDD, once they get into that luteal phase, they're experiencing these super low sometimes. So a feeling of hopelessness, feelings of depression, like I said, those suicidal thoughts. They tend to have conflicts. So, like the closest people in their life, they're having issues with, or they're being secluded and they don't want to talk to anybody. All of their close friends, associates, they don't really associate with them during that luteal phase. And of course, it gets worse as the period's about to start. But as soon as your period starts a day or two later, you're finally back to self. As the hormone level starts to regulate again. So if I remember correctly, I know I have a blog post on it on my website about the statistics, but I want to say roughly 10% maybe, but I could be wrong. But it's something around like that 10% range of women have PMDD. And it's also
Mm.
something that's not quite understood and known, because of all of the symptoms of it. They don't know whether it's just the different hormonal levels or if it's just something else with these women that suffer from PMDD.
And I was kind of thinking that when you were explaining what that could look like for someone with PMDD, and I was like, okay, that could also sound like people going through hormonal changes that's going into like perimenopause and different things like that. How do we know it's PMDD versus possibly perimenopause or just your hormones kind of raging the way they are? And so I'm really glad that you were able to kind of break that down for someone who might have never heard about that prior to. And then if you like to, Destiny, after the live stream, if you want to link the
A blog post.
blog post that you
Yeah.
have in the comments, since we just kind of talk about it and somebody may not know anything about it, you can put that link to the blog post in the comments and people can also refer to that. So y'all check the comments
Yeah.
soon and we'll drop the link in the comments to Destiny's blog that goes a little deeper into PMDD. And it stands for what again?
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
There we go. Whew. What no one tells us about healing
Literally,
menstrual pain. What no one
literally.
tells us about
And
healing menstrual
I
pain.
didn't even know anything about it until this was after my endometriosis diagnosis that I learned about PMDD. Because with PMDD, so if we want to take it just a little bit further, and we ain't got to go too much into it, but if we want to take it a little bit further, so you have PMDD and then you have PME, which is premenstrual exacerbation. And so women with conditions like endometriosis or fibroids or PCOS, something like that, where the hormone levels are fluctuating, we could have an increase of mood swings. So
Mm.
using myself for an example, my mood swings are pretty bad, and they can be pretty bad, and they've been pretty ugly in the past. So with conditions like endometriosis, you can have PME, which is just, exacerbation of the symptoms.
Wow. Do you
Yeah.
have that's in the blog too?
Yes, I have a blog post. I have a couple. So when I first started Black Women Feel Pain Too, I actually talked about PMDD and endometriosis, but I dropped the PMDD part and I've just mainly focused on endometriosis. But yeah, I do have a couple of blog posts on my blog about PME and PMDD and the difference between all two of those things in PMS, because there is a difference.
Gotcha. And so, yeah, just because we have been officially diagnosed with different conditions, and it might sound very science heavy right now, what I want Destiny and I to do is really just kind of break down some of the symptoms we were experiencing in our body or through our body that led us to a diagnosis. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode or this live stream on up, hoping that it provided you with some good insights and value, educated you on some things, make you a little
Yes.
curious, but most importantly, wanting to continue the conversation and joining us with the virtual event. So I'm gonna say for me, it was irregular periods. So not having a period every month, not knowing when my period was going to come. It was the unwanted facial hair that I saw multiple people in my family had. So I just kind of chucked it up to hereditary or, it runs in my family, never knowing that it could be a hormonal issue. Another thing would be the onset of nausea every now and then when I would get my cycle, thinking it was food poisoning and just being nauseous for days and not really understanding how do I fix it? How do I heal it? How do I feel better? How do I no longer feel nauseous? Another one was the low back pain. Not all the time. It wasn't low back pain every single time my cycle would come on, but definitely as I got closer to the debilitating pain that I experienced that led me to the emergency room that started my diagnosis journey. That low back pain was definitely crucial. Like I could not get comfortable at all. Painful bowel movements happened every time my cycle would come on, and I just thought it was my norm. So hard that, so painful that it was like doing Lamaze breathing just to pass my bowel while I was using the bathroom. Just absolutely painful. Didn't know what was going on, and just hoping that maybe I could just get through not having but so many bowel movements until my cycle is over, just because I didn't want to experience it. Feel like that's about all that I can think of. The pelvic pain on my left side got very worse and debilitating over time, but it wasn't something that I was experiencing since middle school and high school, like most of the other symptoms that I was experiencing. And so that is what it kind of looked for me. Also, fluctuating weight. So there were times when I've gotten really big and I couldn't lose the weight no matter what boot camp, no matter what type of diet I was trying to go on to see me lose the weight. It was really hard to lose the weight. And that was not something that I experienced growing up because I was a dancer. And so I was very active middle school, high school, college. And so my weight was pretty good, pretty light. But once I started getting to a place where I had more of a sedentary lifestyle, working in an office, sitting down more, not dancing as much, the weight would come and it would stay, and it would be so hard to lose the weight. And so that was another thing. Again, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, adenomyosis. They found that in the left side of my muscular uterine wall, and then stage 4 endometriosis, and a large cyst had ruptured on my right ovary. And so that was something that was major for me. And so that's what some of my symptoms look like leading up to a endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and fibroid diagnosis.
Man, oh man, oh man. Yeah, from the very beginning, my periods were painful. So we're talking about painful periods, ton of nausea, back pain, mood swings, and as I got older, things just progressively got worse. And I again was never taught anything about my period, so I'm just thinking what I'm going through is normal. And then also just talking to the girlfriends that you're growing up with in middle school and high school with. And none of us really know anything because our parents aren't talking to us about it. So we're talking to each other and we're asking Google. So I just went throughout my school years and then my college years, just thinking everything that I was going through was absolutely normal until finally really going to sleep one night fine and waking up the next morning and my life has literally not gone back. And the pelvic pain just got out of control. We're talking about bad sciatic pain, back pain, headaches, just a whole lot. And so I was 20, I think I was 22 when I officially got diagnosed with endometriosis. So from 12 to 22, just walking around here trying to make the best of a crappy situation.
Gotcha. Man, oh man. And then all shoot said heavy periods, weight fluctuation, and nausea were my symptoms, and diagnosed in my late 30s with adenomyosis.
Mm.
And they said, I thought it was normal because nobody told me otherwise. Every month to the doctor for a pain injection, and nothing was ever said about it not being normal. And I think that's the part right there, all shoot, that
Right.
nobody ever said that it was not normal, but yet I'm
Right.
injecting someone
Right.
because their pain is so debilitating.
Right.
And I hate that. And thank you all shoot for sharing and really being open with your experiences, your symptoms, and adding to the conversation and engaging with us on this live, because it's our experiences that truly help other people know that what they're going through is not invisible. They're not crazy. And yes, other people are experiencing these things too. What can I do to help myself? What do I do to navigate the healthcare system, identify what my healing journey to look like so that I can get some help with the symptoms, because your symptoms today don't have to be your symptoms forever. And so if there's anyone out there feeling this type of menstrual pain, this does not have to be your everyday. There are definitely ways to help yourself address the pain that you're experiencing, the bloat, the fatigue, the way your body is talking to you right now. There are things that you can do and choices that you can make to truly show up and help yourself and take care of yourself. And sometimes all it starts with awareness and education, knowing that something is possible, that it can be different.
Yes, yes. And that's why exactly you've got to tune in for the Flow Collective happening on October the 25th. I believe the link is below to purchase your tickets.
So y'all check the show notes to get your virtual ticket. If you want a discount and you also want to be able to really kind of share your experiences, put a voice to what you've been experiencing, definitely do the form, the interest form prior to get a discount form, a discount code. As soon as you submit that form, you'll see a discount code that you can apply to your virtual ticket. All right, so definitely check that out, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, check the show notes for all the good vibes and value. And then also look in the comments for Destiny's blog post that goes a little bit deeper on PMDD in regards to her insights, her research. Definitely make sure that you connect with us on your favorite social media platform. All of that information and links are in the show notes as well. So if you're listening on YouTube or Facebook, please make sure that you follow our pages and our platforms using the information in the show notes. It is all right there. Y'all have an amazing week, and we will see you all on Friday. Thanks for vibing with us.
Bye.